Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video we are going to discuss what's the difference between an entry point and a CMD command in our Dockerfile. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand about these two commands is that unlike commands that we have like run or copy, okay, these commands you normally see them in your Dockerfile. Unlike these commands, the CMD command and the entry point command, they don't execute when you're building the image. These are commands that execute when you are running the container. Okay, and one simple way that we can see this is by actually running or building our image and seeing that whilst we are building the image, those commands are not actually executed. They are only executed when we run the containers. Okay. So first let me start with a simple CMD command. Okay. Just to prove a point. And in this CMD command, I will just have an echo hello. Okay. That would just be my simple command. Then when I execute the container, so when I run the container, I should expect this echo hello to show up on the terminal. Okay. So the first thing that we have to do is to build this image. Now, how do we build an image? Well, we should just do docker build. Then we can add a tag. Okay, we can just call this CMD entry point example, and then give it the build context of here, this current location where I have the Dockerfile. Okay, and by default it will look for the Dockerfile command or Dockerfile file with this name. Otherwise you have to specify the Dockerfile file with the -f flag. Okay, and specify the file name itself. So when we do this, you should see here that it's building the image, and in no place here on the build log, in no place you see this echo hello being printed out to the console, let's say. Okay, but if you do this docker run and you build this image, or in this case you specify that this is the image you want to run, when you do this you actually see hello being printed out to the console. Okay, so that's the first thing, and you will see exactly the same thing with entry point. By the way, we can give it a shot. So with entry point, echo hello. Okay, we can even put here hello2, and if I build my image, you will see here that we don't see on the log of building the image this command being executed, but as soon as you run the image, therefore you have a container, you will see here that the output is shows when you actually have the container running. Okay, so that's the first distinction between them. Okay, now also one question you might have regarding this is how many entry points should I have, how many commands should I have in my Dockerfile. Okay, before we continue with this distinctions between one and another. So you should only have one entry point and one CMD command specified in your Dockerfile. If you have more than one, only the latest one will be applied. Okay, let me give you an example with entry point hello2 hello3. Actually, you already see some linting, some IntelliSense here telling you that there can only be one entry point instruction. Okay, the last one will have effect. But let's see this in practice. So when I build the image, and then when I run it, I should expect to see on the console hello 3, okay? Which is what we see. Okay. So and the same if we do the example for the CMD. I will not actually run it, but show you that we have the exact same output as far as linting goes. Okay. So we already see here some IntelliSense telling you, hey, you can only have one CMD instruction in your Dockerfile. Okay. So yeah, if you have more than one, you shouldn't. Try to have one entry point and one CMD instruction. Okay. Now coming back to the differences between them, one other big difference is that when you have a CMD command specified, you can override this command when you are running the container. Okay, let's see this in action. So let's say that my CMD command is just called hello. Okay, we already know the drill. If we build the image and we run the container, we see hello being printed out to the console. Okay, hello is printed out to the console. But as I just told you, the command instruction, you can override it when you are running the container. And how can you do so? Well, when we are running the container, whatever we put next will override this CMD instruction. Okay. So if I do echo CMD hello to something like this, you will see that whatever instruction I have here after I specify the Docker run, this will override this CMD. Okay. So think of CMD as the arguments for your program that you can always override them. If you specify no value, it will take whatever default value is specified here. Okay. And this can be very useful in many situations. We will see one of them afterwards, or explore one of them. But we'll briefly speak about one of them. Yeah. So so keep in mind that, you know, with the command instruction, you can easily override it. Okay. That does not happen if you have entry point. Okay. If you have entry point, by default, okay, you cannot override it on this way like we did it here. Okay. Let's do it. So if let me put hello dash entry point. Okay. If we build this image and we run a container based on it, we see this hello entry point. But now all of a sudden, if I just want to do echo hello 3, you see that this command didn't even properly execute it. Okay. It was almost passed on as arguments to this entry point. Okay. So the echo LO3 didn't even properly rendered, let's say, as our command. Okay. That's normally what happens. Okay. When you use entry point and command in conjunction. So, and this is again another difference between them. So the difference we just saw was that command is something you can override, but entry point is not. Actually, you can override the entry point, and I will teach you a trick how. So you know that this command has this hello entry point, but if you specify the -- entry point, and you do echo override entry point. Okay. Not this, sorry. You can do something like this. minus minus entry point, and you can do echo, and you can have this here. Okay. So when you do minus minus entry point echo, this will override this part here, and then whatever comes next is treated as commands. So ultimately having something like this. Okay. Something like this, you see. And if we build this image and we run, you will see we get the exact same output as before. Okay. So actually there is a way to override the entry point, but it's not something that I recommend you to do. Okay. Just keep it normal. Keep it, just override the command instructions. But one thing that I want to point out is that normally you use entry point and CMD, okay, not one or another, okay, and when should you do so? So you should consider entry point as something that you always want to execute, a process that you want to stuck to. When you run the container, you want that process to hang, okay? As an example, if you have Jest, which is a framework for testing, okay, you can specify on here on the entry point that you want to run the Jest process, okay? And then on the command, you have the arguments that are passed to this entry point. So to Jest, you can specify file that you want to test or a folder that you want to test and so on. Okay. You suggest you can be your Python script, it can be whatever. Okay. And you can have CMD as the arguments that are passed on to this process. And then if you don't pass anything when you do Docker run, if you don't pass anything here, if you don't pass this, you will use a default configuration. But if you do, then those default arguments will be passed on to the entry point process or whatever you're executing here, your executable, okay? So use entry point when you want a specific command to run, and CMD as optional parameters or arguments that you pass to this command. Okay, that's some recommendation that I give you. Okay. Another thing that is also useful to know is that sometimes when you inherit from a base image, that base image also has some entry points and command instructions set there. But one thing that you must know is that whenever you do this and you explicitly set entry point and command instructions on this Dockerfile, you in a way override whatever is on this base image. Okay. So just to be aware of this, because sometimes on the base image you normally have an entry point and command instructions defined, but if you don't specify anything here by default, this one will be executed, okay? If it has anything specified. So hopefully on this video you could see the difference between command and entry point. Okay, they are simple concepts, but ones that are, I would say, important to know. Because they can bite you if you use them improperly, okay? So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye.